So those 7 principles plus a daily routine, being intentional about how I spend my time can really help, prevent that burnout and really engage our employees, improve, help us navigate the uncertainty in the industry or the global economy, while being profitable and productivity, increasing productivity, as well as optimizing our businesses. So.
Yeah, and everything is this notion. The government has been definitely trying to have cutbacks and all along those lines. And part of that is whether there is enough productivity, even among our government employees. And you said you've been dealing with different agencies. And I know that here on the network, we've had David Walker, who has been part of Office of Budget and Management and all along those lines. Of course, we've had people that have been connected to Doge and things like that. So I just wondered, do you think that it is across the board in various industries, whether it's the government or even like I live here in Durham and we've got the City of Medicine. So is it also in like the medical industry as well? Or is it certain industries that are more prone to this kind of burnout that you're talking about?
Yeah, so I really dealt heavily in the manufacturing space, so I definitely believe that is a key, part. You think about the global tariffs and that whole situation. Well, that's definitely created some opportunities to drive, business into maybe local economies, but it's also increased cost. So it's a double-edged sword. So I've really been dealing more with the manufacturing side of things, but I could definitely see that happening in the healthcare. So if you think about, the various illnesses and so forth, and the lack of having maybe the right workforce or the right amount or right number of people in the workforce, could definitely create that burnout as well. But I do think too, really one driver of burnout is just having clarity of what's those key objectives and goals. And then how are we intentionally going to live with purpose and intention to meet those objectives and goals? And I think without that definitely creates, some burnout, but also doesn't, enable us to tap into the total workforce and engage all of those that have some great creative ideas.
Yeah, one of the other things that we've talked about, I've got Rick with me as well, and I'm sure he'll bring it up also when he comes in. But a lot of people are wondering about the impact of AI on burnout as well, because a lot of people are fearful that their job may not even be around. I'm thinking about some of the service industries, whether that's like waiters and things along those lines, or some of the other industries, even some of the creative industries. So in your own research, how much is AI playing in people's fears about burnout?
Yeah, I think I am positive that's definitely impacting people, as far as their job, their fear, of uncertainty, and then what do they do in the future. I would really focus on, I do think AI will definitely, change the landscape of our positions and jobs. But I think those that are going to really excel and do well are going to learn how to leverage AI, because there's some things that AI just simply cannot replace. And although I think they're making strides, I don't know if it can ever change or replace that eye to eye conversation, that emotional intelligence of a human being, or the extreme creativity. They're definitely developing, some great stuff there. But I think the people that learn how to leverage the AI skills for their benefit and how to be more productive, they'll win in any industry.
That makes a lot of sense. One of the things that has really been shocking, and we've had some people, including one that used to live in Dubai that was on this network probably about 2 or 3 years ago, is the amount of people that don't necessarily have a business plan or even a plan of action, the business and everything like that. So how big is that, and that program has been playing into AI? I know
Yeah,
that one of
so
my
so
jobs
just some of the research
figured
that
out
I've
in the
seen.
trade where the director of the board decided to go in a different direction, and now there is some transitions that are going on as well. So how big is that kind of corporate or economy, or that whole kind of atmosphere play into? Did you hear me, Sean?
Yeah, yeah. So I apologize. I've had a little bit of connection issue, but I think, as the old saying goes, fail to plan, plan to fail. And I think there's a lot of people that have launched AI and different digital transformation efforts that failed, I think over 70 to 80%, just simply because they didn't really look at the strategic plan. And I think that's really key as we go forward, is to understand what is our overall purpose, what's the value we bring to the industries, and then what's that, how does AI and digital transformation really help us accomplish that? Yes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to bring in some of my other folks, including Sharif, who comes to us from Bangladesh, as well as Nick, the of this particular, everything like that. So how did you get involved in this business and everything, military background? So how did you get into this whole planning space?
Yeah, so I have not necessarily worked in the military, but I have worked in defense industry as a defense contractor. So just for clarification there. But I think that's really key. How did I get into that? Well, I think it's really, absolutely critical I'm in operational excellence or business transformation. So we've got to constantly be looking at how to get better, how to do things safer, better, faster, cheaper. And naturally, the AI side, as well as digital transformation, is key. But we have to understand, do we have solid processes? Do we have good input? Otherwise, we're going to get bad output, for AI and so forth. So I think that foundational items, building the good processes, good data source, cleaning of the data, is absolutely critical for it to be beneficial and value added to us and to be effective.
So what can workers do to protect themselves?
That makes a lot of sense. Rick, you had a question?
Yeah, I was asking it. What can workers do to protect themselves from exploitative business practices? So productivity is up 5-fold since World War II, and America gets 1/3 the paid vacation days of Europe, and we still get told that we have to work harder, smarter, faster. When are workers gonna get any of the benefits from what have been streamlined and more efficient business practices? We just seem to keep getting squeezed, and now AI is one more squeeze. Plus Doge, the principle of Doge was, if you work for the government, you should be uncomfortable every hour of every day if you're not working your ass off. That seems unfair. It seems like a recipe for burnout.
Yeah. No, that's so. I can't speak for Doge. Don't really have a connection with Doge, so I can't really speak to that. But I can tell you from my experiences, in the way we approach is really working with that frontline worker, right? So I always like to go work, or go along beside that frontline worker, understand the problems that they're facing. How do I help that person be successful in what they're doing? I think it's, as we address cost, we have to look at cost on all sides, material, but also our overall, overhead of the facilities and that kind of thing. So we have to be looking at it from all sides, but our people are our most important asset. So I think it's just really key of how do we help people grow and develop where they are, help them be successful in their job, and then our companies will be successful as we go forward. But it should not be at the neglect of the person. So,
Sean, I have another question or comment. I'm a member of the Florida Bar, and they required us to take all these mental health and alcohol abuse classes, because you'll find this a very interesting statistic. 27% of the members of the Florida Bar suffer from alcoholism and drug abuse. And that's a pretty high statistic. Now, here's how I got out of it. I don't live in the United States anymore. I live in Barcelona, Spain, which they don't have the same problems as they do in the United States. As they say in Barcelona, you work to live. And in the United States, you live, so you go to work. So it's just a different attitude down on the Costa del Sol. So what are your thoughts about Americans saying, hey, come on, places like Spain, the average life expectancy is 84. In the United States, it's 77.
Yeah.
Perhaps the U.S. has lost its place to be. In other words, you may want to live somewhere else. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great. So in my, so I tried to capture, 7 powerful principles in a book that I wrote. It's called, Sustained Business Growth. And I think it's all about the leadership side in healthy and balanced leaders, right? So I think it's really key that leadership is fundamental and critical. And how do we maintain our own, lead ourselves well in a balanced life? What's our purpose? What's our mindset? What's our relationships like? And then how are we building, capability in our teams? The better balance, and as well as family's big to me. So I think making sure that I have good family time, a good network, a good social life, and just really living that better balance can help our stress levels and actually help us live longer. I think also monitoring our critical vitals. You think about our brain health, you think about our sleep, you think about our diet, our exercise. So I think it all comes down to leadership, right? So how balanced and how well does that leader lead themselves? Then they'll lead their teams better, right? And so that's really what I call a perfect day routine in the book that I wrote. It's sustainedbusinessgrowth.com. And so I think that's something that would help Americans as well as anybody in any industry or any country to ensure, hey, do I have the right balance to be the most effective and have the biggest impact in my surrounding, in my business, and in my world? So
I'm definitely a burnout case. For 12 years, I had a 12-hour-a-day job, and they let me go. And in the years since, I haven't even bothered to try for any other jobs. What would you do with me?
Great question, great case. So first of all, I'd just try to better understand, what's driving the burnout, right? So really from what's your passion? What's your purpose? What do you feel like you get excited about? What do you want to come, wake up every day and go after, right? So first of all, we would have that conversation, right? Because I think that's really key. A lot of leaders don't do that, right? They don't really understand the teams and the people that work with them. And so I think that's the first thing I would just say. And I would listen. I would listen to understand what's frustrating you, what's causing that burnout, but what is it that you want to accomplish? I think the better we can understand that, the better I can help you to understand what is going to help you get through that, and then where can we get you in the right spot that's going to, instead of draining you, causing that burnout, what's going to sustain you and give you energy. And so that's really what I would just really start that conversation. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, Dr. Sharif from Bangladesh. Comments, counselor.
Yeah, this is very interesting discussions, and right now I'm in Bangladesh already. Nick Palveda said. So, what do you think? Like when you discuss about healthcare and leaderships and all of the interesting aspects, how you think about the emerging economy, or do you have planned any contributions or any cooperations with this emerging economy like Bangladesh or India, or what do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, so let me make sure I understand the question is what are my thoughts on healthcare? And I didn't quite understand what part of, you talked about India and Bangladesh. So I have been in India, a short period to work with some of our sites, or one of our sites there. But let me just clarify, what is it, the part that you're asking about?
Like healthcare. I'm just talking about healthcare. When you are in India, I don't know what part of India. So do you contribute for their healthcare developments? What your observation about the healthcare system in India, or what area we can improve?
Yeah. So I was in Aurangabad. So I was really working with one of our sites and really understanding the structure, the performance, productivity, and how to help that team win. I did not get into the healthcare, right? So, but what I would really emphasize is I'm a big fan of what we call the influencer model. So desired results that we need to achieve there with the healthcare in India? How do we measure that? What does that look like? How do I describe that? What's the vital behaviors, right? So what's the vital behaviors that's going to help improve that measurable results for healthcare? And then what's the sources of influence, right? So thinking about the individual, thinking about the social, the structural side of things. So how do we explore that to really, maybe impact or influence the vital behaviors that gets the results that we want to see in that healthcare? So I can't really speak to that. I've done much there with the India healthcare, but that's the approach that I would take and just better understand that results, vital behaviors, and sources of influence.
Hey, Sean, just really quickly, along those same lines and everything, what do you think? Because we heard a lot of conversations during the last political season about leadership. It's still out there now, but you've written this book. In your mind, what makes a quality leader, and what are some of the leadership qualities that people should be looking for in their corporations? And is it different from the profit world and the nonprofit world?
Great question. So, and actually I had something similar to that question on my website. And so the way I answered that is the leaders that I found. So I interviewed 15 high impact leaders across industries, right? So this was, across majority of the industries. I've also experienced this in my, personal transformations as well. Again, it's a highly emotional, intelligent leader. So they're self-aware, right? So I think it's really key. I think that's a big problem in many of leaders is they're not really understanding the impact that they have on their team and or business. So I think that time to reflect and understand that self-awareness is absolutely fundamental and critical. The other leaders are extremely good at radical focus. So they eliminate distractions. They're very clear. They have very good clarity of what's the purpose and objectives of the organization and our team. What do we have to accomplish? And they're radically focused on that, and they eliminate distractions. They don't try to accomplish too much, right? They're really, let's narrow down to 3 to 5 and maybe just 3 things that's really going to move the needle to help us overcome the obstacles and the challenges that we have. The other thing too is they're very curious, right? So they're relentlessly curious. They're always asking questions. They're always checking their thought process. They're always checking other people's thought process to understand, do they have a good grasp of reality? So a lot of times, many people don't have a great grasp of reality and they ignore that and they try to accomplish their own personal agendas or other agendas that may not fit the circumstance. So I think that's really key too. And then in actually empowering others, they're big on people, right? They've definitely mastered the skill of understanding people and communicating effectively to meet people where they are and help them take that next step. So that's just 3 of the critical, behaviors that I've witnessed and seen in different leaders that were highly successful. I'm not so sure that really, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I did see Rick's hand as well, and I did want to know the difference between profits and nonprofits and everything. But just really quickly, I did want to get to Rick as well. But how important do you think it is for organizations and the people within the organizations to know the mission statement? Because I know that that's something that we hear a lot about and everything. But I know probably if I was to go, I live not that far from a Chipotle and everything. And I bet you if I went to Chipotle, most of those workers could not tell me what the mission statement of Chipotle is. And that would just be my guess and everything like that. So I think a lot of people go to work without knowing the corporate mindset, for lack of a better term, and everything. So is that a misinterpretation on my part, or is that something that you're finding that a lot of people don't have a greater understanding of what the corporate goal is?
Yeah, I think that's, I see that quite often in many different places. But I would just say, I think it's so important for people to understand the why, right? So there's a lot of mission statements out there. There's a lot of great vision statements, but they're not meaningful, and people will have a trouble with connecting with it, right? So in that case, it's meaning, it doesn't really mean a lot. It's just statements on a wall. But if you think about what really it's meant to do, the purpose is understand the why. Why are we doing the work that we do every day? What gets us excited? If you're not connected with that, that'll definitely lead to, look, I'm not really excited about this. I don't really care to do this anymore. I'm burnt out, right? So I think to better understand my why, hey, look, I'm here, so different businesses that I've worked a part of, One was protecting, the people out there in the field that protect us. Well, that got me excited because I've had family in the military and other places that I wanted to make sure they were safe, right? So, and or protected. So that was something I could connect with, right? That connected to right here in my mind and my heart. Other ones, hey, look, if it's stuff, products that we use every day that in, whether it's flight or transportation, hey, I want to make sure if my family was on that plane or on that car or in that car, I want to make sure they're safe, right? And so it's going to help my family so I can connect with that purpose. But if I can't connect with that purpose, I'm going to have trouble really, getting excited about the work. Does that make sense?
Yep.
That does make sense. Rick?
So how do you protect your people as a leader under deteriorating conditions? I work in entertainment in Los Angeles, and over the past couple of years, since the writers and actors strike, production in TV and movies in the city is down 40%. And there's, a lot of, despair at work going away. And, it's not just in entertainment, it's everywhere. With AI some estimates have AI costing the world between 400 million and 800 million jobs by 2030.
Yeah, I think so. Back to your question of how do we protect our people, right? So I think great leaders. This is something I've been really trying to work hard, on myself for many years, is understand the dynamics of the industry, understand the business, understand where it's going, and then how do I help people develop to go meet that future industry, not what's already happened. So as we look at AI, how do I help people develop their skills to where instead of, because it's coming fast and it's already here, how do we adapt to it? How do we help our teams, leverage it to be successful in whatever team or whatever function they're doing? So I think that's just really key, is equipping our people, right? So understanding what are their strengths, where do they want to go, and how do we help them, develop and get there? Because I think that's really how you protect your workforce. If people don't grow, then they become obsolete. Yeah.
Yep. That makes sense. I brought Nick back because Nick had actually, along with the other founder of the network, interviewed, and he can tell you who they were, several of the leading corporate heads and everything when they first got involved with this network. I think it was IBM TV back then and everything like that. But Nick can explain it, because I think there was the gentleman that was part of the Netflix, as well as Dunkin' Donuts and some of the other ones. But Nick, you're hearing this conversation about leadership, and I remember you talking about some of the people that you interviewed. So what are some of the things that you found that maybe Sean found as well? So I just wonder, because I remember you brought that up a couple of times, the different people that you interviewed, you and Kim.
Yeah, well, we did interview the founder of Pegasystems and the founder of Napster and the founder of Uber. And here's the thing that we found, and I found about all the leaders, Sean, and all the people that are financially successful. They do like Rick does. They work 12 hours a day. Most of my clients are extremely financially successful. But one thing I have in common when I interview them, they work like dogs. I mean, it's not unusual to see 12-hour days every day, 6 or 7 days a week. And it's kind of like that's the way it is with their lives. And some of my clients have been really good. One of my clients founded Dunkin' Donuts. He's dead now. Another one was the president of Philip Morris. He's dead now. They all tend to die. The president, Kimberly Clark, he's still alive. The president, Bao Shalom, he's dead now. So unfortunately, the thing is, they can't escape getting older and dying. It's just one of those things. I guess the real question I have on leadership, by the way, I've worked with a lot of those people in private industry, and all of them are good leaders, better than you have in Washington, D.C. now, better than you had in Washington, D.C. for the last 50 years. So my question is, why is it that Washington has two problems that you mentioned here? Number one, they have no plan. In other words, there's no 5-year plan. There's no 10-year plan. There's no plan at all to get out of your $37 trillion debt. I don't think they know the word plan. Okay. And you mentioned planning is important. Well, we just don't have one in the United States of America. Problem number two, leaders. Name one good leader out of the Democratic Party. And I'll show you all damaged goods everywhere. But the Republican Party isn't much better. If that's the best they got, that's not good, especially when private industry dominates the talent pool. So what, as Mr. Wonderful would say, what are we going to do, Sean?
Yeah, that's so I cannot speak for Washington. That is a lot to speak for. So I'm definitely not equipped and the right person to speak to that. The best thing that we can do, I think, as leaders in whatever industry, whatever place that we are in, is define success on our terms, right? So you mentioned a lot of successful leaders. Well, what is really success? What does that mean to you and each individual? Some may mean that could be titles, that could be revenue, that could be sales, that could be legacy, that could be faith, that could be. So I think first of all is understanding what does success mean to that individual, and then how do I structure my perfect day routine to really meet that success, that definition of success. To really be effective and efficient in things I can control, because there's a whole lot of stuff out there that I cannot control, and some of those that we talk about, right, that's been on the podcast so far. So I would just really say we focus on leading ourselves well, and then we can lead our other team members well and focus on things that we can control.
Yeah. Another question I have is, we bring this up on David Walker's show every Monday. He's the former Comptroller General of the United States. He runs a Monday show for us every week. This national debt of $37 trillion, and apparently it looks like it's going to grow another $4 trillion. Does that bother anybody in the United States? I mean, debt to GDP was a bad issue in Spain, Italy, Portugal, Argentina, Japan. And the thing is, every one of these governments had to get real about this. But apparently in the United States, it seems like you have an unlimited credit card. So as I'm basking in the Costa del Sol, I'm always thinking about the United States, how you saying, falling into the Atlantic Ocean with a burden of debt. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, that could wreck everybody's business.
Yeah, I think, yes, it does concern me significantly, the amount of debt, right? So that if I think about any business, you think about the small businesses, the medium size, no business can really operate at a debt level that just continually drives a hole, right? So I think it's absolutely critical that we define reality. We understand how big of the situation it is. What can we do to offset that and start to build more sustainable growth in our industries? I think there's different techniques and different approaches, and our government is taking some different techniques and different approaches. There's benefits, pros and cons of each one, and I think it's just really weighing which one's going to help overall that's sustainable.
Okay. The other thing before Rick jumps in, books. I love books. I bought 4 of them yesterday. I mean, I'm glad I'm not here in the U.S. because over there they're all in Spanish. I can barely read Spanish. So I'm addicted to books. I buy books. Tell me about some of the books that you wrote, because I certainly, me and a lot of the people on the network tend to buy a lot of books and read books. It's just strange. Show me some of the books that you've written in the areas.
Yeah. So I've only wrote one book. So it's Sustained Business Growth. Again, I captured 7 powerful principles of the leaders that I've been a part of, worked alongside with or heavily influenced me. And so really just captured those principles, just understanding mindset. So do I have the right mindset? How do I create that growth mindset to be successful? So as I create that mindset, what's clarity? So just thinking about, being very clear on purpose and, what is the why, that why I do what I do. How do I get clarity of communication? So how do I, clearly communicate that to the people that matter most? How do I get the right people aligned? So who's the right people? I think a lot of times we create burnout within ourselves as we try to do everything. And so I think it's just a matter of, creating that network of people, of who's the right person to help us accomplish that. and build that legacy, right? So the last chapter is leading for legacy. So that's a little bit about the book that I wrote.
I'll defer to Rick Rosner, my
So,
esteemed counsel.
if you're going to work your ass off and work 80-hour weeks, it would be nice if you had a stake in what you're doing. Like those CEOs that you worked with, they were making 20, 30, 50, 80 million dollars a year. In entertainment, the CEOs make 100 to well, there's one guy, David Zaslav, runs Time Warner. He makes about $150 million a year. He had 1 year where he made $400 million. And so, yeah, that guy probably loves his job because he's, but if you're just a line worker for time, like Disney is able to get sign off. Disney workers are incredibly hardworking and dedicated because they love the product, and this lets Disney exploit them. But they're happy to be exploited because they feel like they're spreading unconditional love, which that they grew up with Disney. Disney has a lot of gay employees, and they, as kids, they felt love from Disney when the rest of the world was hating them. How do you get people to work their asses off and feel like they're part of a shared project? When the CEO is making 300 times the average employee.
We're joined by Steve Rao, who's our correspondent in Washington, D.C. I think you're in Washington, aren't you? It looks like you're in Rome, Italy, but I'm not sure, Steve.
No, this is not a Zoom screen. I'm actually in the capital city, and I wanted to come on World Edition. I got here a little late. I went for a run this morning, and I just wanted to thank everyone for being here. And yesterday I was at a wonderful event hosted by the U.S.-India Partners Forum. John Chambers, the former CEO and chairman of Cisco Systems, I don't know if you heard of Cisco, was overseeing the event. And Usha Vance, he did a fireside chat with the Second Lady of the United States. We also heard from Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, very different perspective coming from the Republican, him saying that the tariffs were good things. He's very excited about opening up markets. He said Trump is one of the most intuitive leaders he's ever met. And, I was the only Democrat in the room, moderate Democrat. And I know Chambers is a moderate Republican, but it was a really great night. And I think they're coming back into session tomorrow, all talk on the big, beautiful bill, whether that's going to get through the Senate. I guess Gaza, just talk about that. And, Putin and Ukraine. And I got a couple meetings with some congressmen today for work-related stuff and also about my campaign for county commissioner. But I'm sensing a lot of division in this town. But honestly, I've never seen Donald Trump more confident. The people around him just absolutely excited for the Republicans. And I think Tom Tillis is running again for the U.S. Senate. I ran into his campaign manager yesterday and his consultant. But anyway, any questions for me in D.C.? What are we talking about today?
Sean has been talking about that you got to get your employees to embrace reality. Did you see a lot of embracing of reality in the thing you just walked out of?
No, I don't know. From their perspective, it's about bringing in revenue, and they're not really addressing a lot of the job loss that we're seeing, at least in North Carolina, from the federal cuts. A lot of the Department of Energy money is being tied up, so it's just a different perspective. But I'm confused because I don't think tariffs can bring that kind of revenue in to offset the negatives on the economy. But I will say that Trump's defense is something had to be done. That's what the Secretary of Commerce says, that you can't just stand around and let these countries incur these huge trade surpluses. So I don't know. It's all about perspective, right?
Hey, Steve, if we were to drop a studio right there where you're at, because you got a great background, would we be escorted off the premises or not?
No. If I went on the stairs, I probably would. I've got to meet with Congresswoman Ross today at 4:45 out here. But no, you can do I don't know whether you could. I don't know. I don't see a lot of media here, but they're not kicking me out. So,
Oh, okay. Well, if they don't kick you out, I don't think they'll kick the Pod TV network out.
No.
But I think that's a great backdrop, and perhaps you'll be able to talk to some senators or congressmen and see what they're doing in Washington, D.C. Last little tidbit. Mark has suggested to change the name of World Edition to World Edition and Breaking News because people like breaking news. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, yeah, we'd be like everybody else. Breaking news.
Okay, so I put the byline World Edition and Breaking News only because the most viewed television shows are breaking news television shows. I'm not kidding.
Look at all the names of all the Fox News shows, like Special Bulletin, and they do that all the time. And yeah, it works.
Yeah, well, Steve's breaking news from Washington D.C. Nothing's happening, but see, that's part of breaking news.
No,
Nothing ever happened in Washington.
It's gonna get busy. I mean, most of my conversations, I got to go back and check my email, get back to my office. I just came to do this. I thought of you guys today and said, hey, I'm in D.C. Might as well come in live from D.C. I'm gonna leave in a few minutes. I got to get to a meeting, but it's
Okay.
great to be with you guys. I'll be back this week. But
All right.
it's great to be in Washington, and I think that I think there's a lot of division, a lot of uncertainty. But I've never seen, like, when you hear from Howard Lutnick, you know, things couldn't be better. And Usha Vance is very smart. First Indian American daughter of immigrants to be second lady of the United States, and it's amazing, you know.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys when I come back home to North
Okay.
Carolina. And I just got to win this county commission seat so I can be here in a few years.
And everything like that.
Good idea, Steve. All right.
See you guys reporting live
See you.
from Washington D.C. This is
Well,
Steve Rao.
live
See
from
you later.
Washington. You can't beat that. It's better in Tampa, Florida.
What?
Nothing's happening here.
He'll be
I'm in
having.
Tampa, Florida. Nothing's happening here. See.
Well, I would talk to you
palm
more,
trees.
but it's getting hot. Stand in the sun with the suit, so I got to go
Nothing's
find
happening
a
in
ticket.
Tampa
All
at
right.
all.
Yeah. Go say hello to the congressman for us.
All
okay?
right, I'll be back.
Right.
But yeah,
Right.
I guess the
Okay.
main thing, Mark, talk about the Gaza, talk about Ukraine, what's going on there. Talk
Yeah.
about you know,
I think the next show is broadcasted from Poland and Kyiv because Sasha's in Poland, and of course the other guy Ivan's in Kyiv. So we're going to get an update what's going on in Kyiv, Ukraine, right
Okay.
after this in about 10 minutes.
okay. Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah, let me know. And then
All right.
send me David Walker's phone number. I'm going to call him. I don't have his number.
Oh,
on my
really?
phone. You do-
Okay.
you could
Yeah,
just
I got his number. Yeah,
email
I'll
it to me
email
now.
you.
I'm going to call him.
I'll
a bunch.
email it to you. Okay.
All right.
Mark,
See
it's
you
a-
soon, guys.
Mark, it's a
Disruption.
great idea
Disruption is the
to
word of
add.
the day.
Okay,
Disruption.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Mark, it's a great idea to add breaking news to the title. That-
Yeah, well, it was Mark was doing a list of what was the most viewed shows in the United States or around the world. It was breaking news, and I said, well, we don't have a show that's breaking news, but for 5 years we've been doing World Edition. So I figured, notice the byline below there, Rick, World
Yep,
Edition
yep.
and breaking news. So I figured I'd just add it, and then it's going to take some time to morph over to all the places we connect with to kind of do a name change. You think it'd be easy, but it isn't because we broadcast in so many
Hey,
different
I
places.
did have a quick question
It's
for
a
Sean.
pain.
Nick, I did have a quick question for Sean.
Yes.
I got
Yeah.
rid of him. I wanted to get rid of me.
This notion of networking, and I know that Steve is an avid tennis player and everything like that. So, how important is communication and networking? And should we all be heading to the golf courses and everything like that? Because I know that that's one of the things that people talk about, Sean. So, should we all be heading to the golf courses and learning either golf or tennis? And how important is communications in terms of business leadership?
Absolutely. I think that's probably number one item that came up in all of my conversations is communication, right? So businesses fail because of lack of communication, right? Businesses fail, teams win or lose. You think about, the highest performing teams, think about any sports, they're good communicators. They're very well connected with each other, right? So I think that's absolutely critical and essential in every team or business. Yeah, does that answer your question?
That does answer the question. Everything. I know I asked you earlier, but what is the difference between leadership in nonprofits and profits? Because I don't think we ever heard that answer. And I know that I'm actually involved in the nonprofit world, and it does seem like they have different leadership models, even though the core principles should probably be the same.
Yeah, I do think there's some core principles that can be essential and critical in both. I do think there's some dynamics that are different. Just depending on the structure of the business, the reporting structure, that kind of thing. But I do think, nonprofit, you're going to have, to me, it's just critical for influence, right? Those that can influence are going to win the day, right? So in positive, I would say positively influence versus just a negative side of that. But so, yeah, I do think core principles, I talk about those in the book, constancy of purpose, clarity, communication, building the right relationships, aligning the right people, the right jobs, right team, and how to engage them on a daily basis, I think would go in any organization. But again, I do think the influence structure is probably slightly different in a nonprofit versus a profit.
Yeah, that makes sense and everything. Is there, because we got Therese here and everything, is there a part of the world that is better with leadership? Because I know you've done a lot of different countries, you visited a lot of different countries, and I know sometimes we hear these notions of places that are happier than others. I think Finland is usually on the top of that list and everything. But is there a part of the world that is better in leadership quality?
Yeah, that's yeah. So there was a country, actually a facility that was a very high performing facility in Slovenia, right? So it was actually in Slovenia, and they had the right structure in place for the business. The leadership was very growth oriented, very supportive but challenging. But they had an unusual sense of humor there, so it was kind of neat to kind of see how the team interacted, communicated respectfully, and just had a good sense of humor, and just enjoyed. They did extracurricular activities, whether it was, I don't know if it was necessarily golf, but they did different sports outside of work together. So I do think that definitely contributed to their culture, if you will, and how successful they were. Yeah.
Yeah. Sharif, you had a question?
Yeah, I just want to add some
Dr.
point
Sharif?
when you discuss. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So when you're discussing about leaderships, my World Talent Economic Forum institutions with USA and with Japan, we are developing a leadership programs. If you see the present world, recently Bangladesh, you can see that we have some political improvement. Many people died because they want democracy, especially the young people. And young people say that we do not want corruption in our politics, corruption in our economy. We need new economy. So many construction happening. Let's say we are changing our constitution, we are changing our administration procedure, we are changing our election procedures. All of the things is happening right now. So I believe that country like Bangladesh, India, we have many young and talented people, those who are heavily dependent on technology. Like with the social media, we go for this new leadership approach. We can say technopolis or technocracy happening around the world. So maybe after this 1990s, or after this, all of the technological innovations and all of the things we are observing, the new generations come. They are smart, they are very innovative, they know how to use technology, and they will lead the new world. So change is coming when the world and all of the communities has to welcome these things. So for that particular issues, my World Talent Economic Forum institution, we are working with US think tank. It's called Tando, Think and Do Tanks. Big Heart Technology from Silicon Valleys, UN universities from Japan, and my institutions. And we are bringing many famous scientists and people, Julian Grosser, Fred Phillips, Sheridan Tatsuno Yamanaka. She was Vice Minister for Japan. Patricia, I also will be part of these things. I believe that new uh, leadership model is growing. New, young, and talented people actually engaging with these things. We have to focus on the youth community, what they want to say, and then based on your wisdom, let's say what we have, we can play together. So then we can build up the new world. That is my thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that. Hey, Sean, along those same lines, and we only got a few more minutes to go, so definitely if you get a chance, pitch the name of your book one more and everything along those lines. But how important is it for, because I remember that there was a time that a lot of corporations were trying to make sure that family was in America and everything. And I don't know if they are, people are doing at home work and everything like that. But how important is it for corporations to make some sort of benefit or some sort of room for family and for family activities? Because I do know that there was a number of major corporations, Creed comes to mind, I think SAS comes to mind, that definitely tried to make sure that there was daycare and other things for the kids to be engaged, even if their parents were working.
Yeah, I do think so. Family is extremely important to me. I do think that is a very critical part of employee benefits. And here's why, right? So I do think it is, someone is going to come to work, and if their mind is consumed on issues outside of work, if they're not really in the mindset of the work that could be done, it could be a safety issue, right? It could be, they could put themselves in harm's way, or they could just create defective product, or they could be very inefficient, right? So, or they just simply are causing, different issues at the company. So, so from an employee benefit, I think it's just critical that we do help that employee have that, what's most concerning to them from their family perspective. How do we take care of them as best as possible? Now, it is a business. We have to, really kind of, you got to weigh the cost benefit analysis and make sure that it's in line. But I think a happy worker is a productive worker. So I think that's really key to really think about the overall benefit side of things.
Okay. And Sean, before we wind down, could you show us your book one more time? Because as people, you notice, they beam in and out of the World Edition. So
yeah,
this is what it is here. Okay.
Hey, first of all, really appreciate the opportunity to promote the book. It's Sustained Business Growth. How to lead radical change, overcome adversity, and ignite explosive growth without sacrificing those that matter most. I captured 15 high impact principles from different people, high impact leaders that I interviewed, but also my transformation across 60 facilities, 17 different countries, and 4 different industries. It's at sustainedbusinessgrowth.com. There's some free resources there as well. So you can download a couple free resources that talk about cash flow survival. It talks about alignment, of teams, high impact teams, but also a little bit about AI as well. So there's some, resources there to kind of check out on AI. So would love to hear from you, and definitely get those free resources at sustainedbusinessgrowth.com.
Is it available on Amazon? We have a contract
Yes.
with Amazon that we resell their books. So, and we also have a contract with Amazon Fire. We actually distribute our TV through Amazon, believe it or not. So if you haven't got with our bookstore with Amazon, make sure you get with Mark, because he runs the Pod TV bookstore with Amazon, and it's been a good relationship. And of course, we do broadcast through Roku, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, almost you name it. We broadcast it. So we're at the hour, so we do want to thank Sean Fry, our special guest. Dr. Sharif, who's always special. Notice we're not arguing this time, Dr. Sharif. But if you go in world politics, there will be arguments. Okay. And Rick Rosner, former writer for Jimmy Kimmel Live in the Los Angeles area. And we'll see you tomorrow on World Edition and Breaking News. Take care. Bye-bye.